A or B, I forget, titer. Can one test show all of that, or
No.
is, oh, okay,
They're
so it's
different,
specific?
they're running different tests.
Okay.
And what's interesting is the level of immunoglobulin in your body can decrease with time. And so what'll often happen is for those of us that have been exposed, like with chickenpox or with MMR, you have to get a booster because we don't have enough antibodies floating around to protect us if we get exposed again. So you may have some immunoglobulin floating around, but it may not be enough. I'll give you another good example. People that get shingles. If you've ever had chickenpox, I know. If you've ever had chickenpox, you've got that lovely little thing in your body that can make you get the shingles. Getting the shingles does not give you enough antibodies to ward it off again. My girlfriend just got the shingles in the ER. I said, when you're 8 weeks past shingles and done, you need to go get the vaccine.
This is the second time she's gotten it?
First.
Because I got shingles when I was 21, so am I good to go for like the rest of my life?
No, no,
You got
because
shingles?
exposure
You need to
isn't
go get the
enough.
vaccine.
Yeah, I got shingles when I was like 18.
Exposure is not enough to build up enough antibodies to really prevent you from getting it. My girlfriend's gonna have to go get the shingles vaccine. Of course, they won't let you get it till you're 60. One of my cardiologists got it.
Yeah, it's
For
expensive.
healthcare worker, come on.
You can spend a lot of money if you wanna get it, but it's an expensive vaccine. I had to wait till I was 60. One of my cardiologists got it the year before last. Oh my God, he was 56 and he had the worst case of shingles. He says, you look at this. I said, oh my God, you have shingles.
My dad refuses to get that, and I don't
Well,
understand
God bless
why.
him, then he needs to look at somebody who gets shingles and see
Yeah,
how horrible it
you can
is.
tell.
I
You
know.
can have 6 months of post-herpetic
Right.
neuralgia.
I've seen people that have like just so much pain from it.
Oh, it's horrible. And you can have it for 6 months afterwards. You can still have the pain. That's the problem. Post-herpetic neuralgia is horrible.
I had someone that had it in her vaginal area, like in their peri
You can get it
area.
everywhere.
People have
God
it,
awful.
that's what concerns me, that
Yeah.
sometimes this flares up in encephalitis in
If
some
you get it
people.
here, or you get it anywhere in the head, it can go right in and it can cause,
Right.
herpetic encephalitis.
And that's extremely,
dangerous.
my father had something else, but like it was similar in nature, the virus can jump on it.
Absolutely. It
Run
can
right
go
to
right
your
up
head.
into your brain.
So who
Yeah, yeah,
cares if it's expensive?
yeah.
My mother just had the shingles and she went into Guillain-Barré.
Absolutely, that's the other thing. that
So,
can
oh,
happen.
that's what caused her to get
How
that
long was she in,
Guillain-Barré?
how long was she, sick? How bad did it get?
She was tricked. Yeah, she's 73. She's 75 now, she's driving, she's independent, but
How
she
long
is-
was she out, down and out?
She was out of the house for 6 months and she had to go to Sinai and everything.
Yeah, I had a young girl that
That's
was
what they said,
36
so,
that got
she
it
got-
after, all she had was a flu.
Wow.
I had a girl who only had the flu, and she came in, she had 3 small kids, aerobics instructor, this is back when I was a new nurse, back in the early, mid-80s. And she was in our unit for 3 months, intubated.
So
Awful.
so the shingles triggered the
Yeah.
Guillain-Barré?
And she had.
Well, it
a
can,
little-
any
a little
virus.
time- Yeah, but all she had a very mild case of shingles. Mild, it was like a little spot, she still has a little scar. But sent her right, yeah, it
Scary.
was like a week to the day when she got the rash, she started the treatment, and all of a sudden she couldn't walk.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like,
Yeah,
oh
'cause that's
God,
how
you
it
got a
starts.
UTI, let's go.
It starts with the
Oh
top.
yeah, so I brought her the ER, and by the next day, she couldn't move. And it just tailspin from there.
What a horrible progression. That's
Still
that's
lucky you was
terrifying.
some UTI.
That's terrifying. Boy, you had to eat your words.
Do you go to the ICU for that?
Oh God, you have to
We
get
did, yeah.
intubated.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because when she came in there, first they were like, it could be, but I don't think so, but just because it can go so bad, we're gonna transfer to the unit. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, because they were worried
Yeah.
about fast progression and
Right.
needing
And it
emergent
did.
intubation.
They were fast.
And the older you get, the quicker it goes.
Just a side note, a doctor gave me 2 acronyms to remember: myasthenia gravis and Guillain-Barré. If you think of it, Guillain-Barré, you can think ground to brain, like bottom up,
Yeah,
and then myasthenia mind to ground. Mind
Mind
to
to
ground.
ground.
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah, because it starts, it goes in the
Goes in
opposite
this
direction.
direction.
Absolutely. All right, so immunoglobulins in our gut or in the mucus are IgA. IgD is just a function to signal the B cells. Remember we talked about B cell lymphocytes? So IgD actually activates that system, and IgE is what's produced when people have an allergic reaction. Can't be done.
Funny time of year to mention
There we
that.
And this is just painful, but it shows you different, remember we talked about the FABs and the FCs having to do with making antibodies receptive to antigens binding to them. See it at the bottom? See down here? There's an antigen binding site, so it allows the antigens to bind to them.
Or them to bind to the antigen. The antigen is the intruder, is the
Right,
bad
right,
thing,
so it's to bind to the, yeah, correct, you're correct. So this just shows you IgG, that the different antibodies have different, their chain sequence is just different. So that's why you can tell different antibodies when they look at them under the microscope. So they actually don't all look the same. They look very, very different, and this just kind of illustrates that. So what are opsonins? They're just markers. So antibodies in the complementary 3Bs make a pathogen or an intruder more susceptible to be able to be destroyed. And this is because they allow binding. Remember we talked about the FC and the C3b receptors, okay? So they actually, opsonins are what work on the antibodies to allow these binders to pick up the pathogens so that they can be chewed up and destroyed. Now T lymphocytes we hear about more than anything else, I think. And T lymphocytes are what are in our thymus, okay? And they are the lymphocytes that recognize all those histocompatible complexes. We talked about the HLA antigens, the MHCs, which are the same. But we don't know about how all of them work. We use T cell measures, especially when you are dealing with hepatitis. And that's what I think about T cells most. I did a rotation with infectious disease. And when you're looking at somebody with hepatitis, or AIDS for that matter, you're looking for their T cell levels. And when their T cell level is down, their infection is raging. When their T cell level comes up, they're either in remission or being successfully treated. Right? So those T lymphocytes, a healthy immune system has a lot of T lymphocytes. An impaired immune system has a low level of T lymphocytes. That's the important thing to know. There are several different kinds of T cell subgroups. You've got TC cells that actually directly attack the antigens themselves, and then some T cells that actually produce cytokines that activate the macrophages, and the macrophages are what actually go and eat up that antigen, all right? And then there are different helper T cells that help make new B and T cells, and then there are suppressor T cells that actually turn off or suppress the B system maturation. So you have you have multiple different kinds of T cells. You've got some that work directly, you have some that facilitate destruction, you have some that actually help in the production of the cells that are responsible for destruction of pathogens, so that there's all sorts of different kinds of T cells. So, some responses in the body, immune systems and the responses in the body are direct. And some of the responses in the body are secondary. They happen as a secondary effect rather than a primary effect. Primary response is when you first get exposed to something. All right, the first time you get the measles. Okay. The first time you get the measles, you get it really bad, right? So you have the initial exposure, and then you have a latent period. And like I talked to you, you get IgM, and then you get IgG gone. Secondary response happens when you get re-exposed. Now your body's already going to recognize, because it has memory, right? So it's going to remember that particular virus or bacteria that you're exposed to, and because of that, it's going to be able to produce more antibodies more quickly because it has memory. And so the second time around, you usually will not be as sick as long because your immune system is able to respond more quickly. The part of the immune system that enhances those antibodies in those phagocytes to get rid of the organisms are called the complement system. That's all they are. And it's part of that immune system that we talked about. It's steadfast. Nothing changes in it. It stays the same. It does the same job all the time. Its role doesn't change. It is very constant. And it can't adapt. It does the same thing regardless of what it's exposed to. It's very, very constant. So what happens with a mother and a baby? Now, you often hear that breastfeeding extends and strengthens a baby's immune system. And that is because a woman's immune, its antibodies actually cross the barrier into the fetal blood. And it's also present, remember we talked about humoral immunity, so guess what? It's in breast milk. So if your baby has, 6 months of breastfeeding, it's got 6 months of added immunity from the mother versus it having to try and build things on its own. Right? And that's where it comes from. And that's why it's so important. And what happens is if you're able to breastfeed, you have this crossover. See, you get this crossover here. So as soon as the baby's born, the baby's starting to try and build it's trying to build its own immunity. However, if you have a crossover here, it gives you a little bigger window where the baby's going to have the built-in immunity from the mother. That's the biggest thing. We talked about T cells before. They detect foreign or deviant cells. T cells, the other thing you look at is T cells you also look at with cancer. So T cells are another thing that they look at when they're looking at somebody with cancer.
In what way? Just numbers, or like which ones are present,
Yeah.
or proportions?
Yes, they'll look at levels. It's believed that we all have cancer cells within us, but because of our immune system, our body's able to keep it in check. And as we get older, everything weakens. And that's why years ago, they used to say that cancer was a disease of the old. And it's because our immune system weakens too with time. And the body is not able to keep those cells in check. And we learned about those cells in the beginning, the beginning of the lecture. That's why the beginning of this whole thing, we started with cells. We talked about how cells change, the pathology of the cell. We talked about how they change. When a cell becomes dysplastic, they're multiplying very rapidly, they're irregular, and that's what a cancer cell's like. So if you have, if your immune system becomes impaired, you don't have as many T cells, so your body's ability to keep those cells in check becomes less. And so it's interesting that, that's why oftentimes people don't get cancer until they're older. And now there's exceptions to the rule. We know there's certain cancers that are definitely juvenile cancers that you see more in young people. But a lot of the other cancers like CLL and, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, myeloplastic disease, all of those things happen with age because our immune system just becomes tired. And that's what immunodeficiency is. It's when our immune system doesn't work as well. Primary is when the immune system just fails on its own without anything in specific causing that failure. Secondary is so primary is when your immune system never really develops. And then secondary is when your immune system fails. So as we get older, you have secondary immunodeficiency because the system isn't working as well as it used to. So that's what the difference is. So with stem cell immunodeficiency, that has to do with that your B cells and your T cells have really fallen off in production. I'm going to try to say this appropriately. Hypogammaglobulinemia is when you don't have enough IgG. Okay. So these are primary problems. So when you have stem cells that don't make B or Ts, that's a primary problem. It's not something that's acquired. It's a primary problem. Not having IgG or IgA is a primary problem. It's kind of like the difference between diabetes type 1 and diabetes type 2. Diabetes type 2 is absence of cells. Diabetes type 1, I mean. Diabetes type 2 is when the body just can't produce enough insulin. So to me, that's the difference between primary immunodeficiency and secondary immunodeficiency. Does that help clarify it a little more? Yeah.
We're just seeing a huge influx of kids coming in with skids, a lot.
With,
The skid syndrome, like,
is
so.
that right?
Yeah, there's a ton.
Do we know why?
Yeah, because it's intermarriage. Intrafamilial, I'm gonna say this wrong.
Intrafamilial?
Intrafamilial.
What's
marriage.
schizo?
So genetics, so because it's for two first cousins marrying each other, or,
Because people are getting married too closely.
yes,
But what's skid syndrome?
it's the stem cell immunodeficiency.
Stem cell immunodeficiency.
Oh, right there,
So
okay.
Yeah.
kids are coming in and they're coming in
Your
sick and
gene
they don't
pool's-
know
Your
why.
gene pool's too close.
Yeah, but they come in, the parents don't know why.
Does this happen in downtown Plymouth?
It's coming up from Kentucky.
No, is that always the reason?
No, I think
No,
I was like,
that's a
just
thing,
saying
but I'm
there's
just
a
saying, there's a rise in
Oh,
it.
I
Well,
see.
there used to be, I hate to tell you, but I remember over in Falmouth that there used to be a lot of close marriages years ago with the Cape Verdeans.
Oh.
And what would happen is you would see this genetic predisposition to all sorts of different congenital abnormalities.
And so like they're getting these kids better, like on high dose antibiotics, but preparing their bodies to get a stem cell transplant, which
It's huge.
it's,
Whoa.
you know, I mean,
That's
you get like and they're doing it on like 18-month-old, 2-year-old babies,
Wow.
2-year-old kids, because they need it, because if they don't, they're gonna die.
They'll die. Yeah,
Is there
they have no
they're
way to keep themselves.
And they're in the hospital for a
Did
long
you
time.
ever see that, there was a movie called The Boy in the Bubble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was about a kid who had
John
primary.
Travolta. Yeah.
So this is just
Oh, it was
basically
John
a skid.
Travolta.
Yeah.
It
He was
Just a
young.
failing immune system.
It's an
too.
immune system that didn't work to start with usually. They usually have negligent or essentially non-existent immunodefense.
Wow.
So, and you know, that's what we do to our chemo patients. We essentially
Leave
knock
it.
out their ability,
Mhm.
we make them immunodeficient. And that's why they have to be on reverse precautions and they have to be so, because they don't have the ability to fight off infection.
And the chemo is supposed to do.
Well, the chemo wipes everything out,
Right.
and of course it affects the manufacturing side, that's a whole thing, to try and kill off those cancer cells and hope that they're gonna regenerate normal cells.
So, I have a question. My friend's dad had cancer that he was getting chemo, but he was also HIV positive. To me, like, I don't understand how he could even get chemotherapy if he was HIV positive, because it would wipe out everything. I mean, he ended up dying, but he got chemo for like months. It was just, when my friend was telling me this, I'm like,
Well, let's put it this way, somebody who's HIV positive is immunocompromised to start with,
yeah.
so that his chances of being able to, the way that you would bounce him back from chemo is very different than somebody who's HIV
Mhm.
positive. So what happens with those people, they don't usually die from the chemo, they usually die from an infection.
Well, yeah, he ended up getting, I think the chemo he ended up getting like AIDS while he was still getting the chemo, and then just dying, but
Yeah, because it's HIV converted.
I just thought it was like counterintuitive to like,
There's been
what do
other studies though with people with HIV, their immune system's functioning differently. They've made cancer breakthroughs because of some of the medicine that they use for HIV,
Yeah.
but also the way that person's body operates now. They
It's
notice
very
that,
different.
that the person's body
Oh.
takes care of cancer differently.
oh,
So
okay.
there's.
You know, I'll tell you, I am far from an expert when it comes to oncology.
Mhm.
It is probably one of the weakest things that I have. It's really a specialty in itself,
Mhm.
hematology and oncology. So I can't really tell you, except that it's kind of apples and oranges. The only thing I would think about with somebody who has HIV or AIDS is the fact that they're immunocompromised to start with.
Mhm.
So
And you're
that-
depleting it with chemo even more,
and then you're knocking
so-
it completely out with chemo.
Mhm.
And so, that's not gonna destroy the virus, but their ability to rebound
Okay.
like you would a normal person is gonna be less than someone who does not have HIV. So
Okay.
that their risk of infection and dying from infection is going to increase.
Okay.
But if they have the HIV and isn't like the HIV and the AIDS, and like you have HIV, but you don't have AIDS.
HIV is you have the virus, AIDS is when you have the active illness.
Yes. So if their T cells were at a good level, then they could bring in the chemo? But again,
And that's
you
what
would
they
bounce
usually
back.
do, but then it's gonna wipe it out.
Yeah.
And oftentimes what'll happen, it sounds like it happened with this guy, he's
Mhm.
converted from HIV to AIDS. And the AIDS is what I'm sure killed him.
Yeah,
So,
and he had diabetes.
yeah.
But on a side note, I'm just feeling really good about my parenting skills because I didn't marry my cousin and I breastfed.
Well,
Yeah.
thank